I don't talk to my parents for reasons unknown to my boyfriend. I asked him to give me some time and I'd tell him. He then spoke to them behind my back, but only to ask for their permission to marry me. He broke my trust, so I said hell no to his proposal. Was I in the wrong here? I never thought I'd be airing this online, but I feel like my world just flipped upside down and I have no idea what to do. I'm using a throwaway because my boyfriend is on Reddit. For context, I'm 25F and my boyfriend is 30M. We've been together for 3 years. Up until a couple days ago, I truly thought he was the love of my life and the man I'd marry. Now I'm not sure about anything. The issue, I'm no contact with my parents. I haven't spoken to them in years. My boyfriend knows that I'm estranged from them, but he doesn't know the full story of why. It's something I've always struggled to talk about. Every time he gently asked about my family, I'd say something like, "It's a painful story, but I promise I'll tell you when I'm ready." He's met my older brother and my close friends, who all know I don't talk to my folks, but he's never met my parents or heard much about them. The short version of why I'm no contact: my parents are not good people. My childhood was pretty awful. They were extremely strict and emotionally abusive, especially my father. My father in particular had a terrifying temper. He would scream inches from my face over minor things, and it sometimes got physical. I remember him slapping me hard enough to split my lip because I talked back once. My mother either joined in on the abuse or stood by silently, so I never had any real protection at home. I was the scapegoat for all their anger. If I came home 5 minutes late from school, I'd get screamed at for an hour. If I got a 98 on a test, they'd ask about the missing 2 points. When I was 17, we had a massive fight, and they kicked me out of the house because I refused to obey some ridiculous rule. They wanted to read my personal diary to make sure I wasn't sending in my thoughts, if you can believe it. I was suddenly 17 and homeless, bouncing between friends' couches. The pain of that rejection and abandonment is something I wouldn't wish on anyone. Fast forward a couple years, I managed to put myself through college with zero support from them. When I was 21, I attempted to reconcile or at least get closure. I met with them, and it turned into them lecturing me about how I'd fallen from grace and how I was living in sin. I wasn't even doing anything wild. I was just supporting myself and dating normally. They took no responsibility for throwing me out. Instead, they told me I was a disgrace to the family and that they had done nothing wrong. I realized they hadn't changed at all, and I decided for my own sanity to cut contact completely. That was 4 years ago. I haven't seen or spoken to them since. This is the painful history I've been slowly working up the courage to tell my boyfriend. He knows my upbringing was strict and that we're estranged, but I haven't given him details. He's respected that boundary, until now. About 2 weeks ago, we were talking about our future and marriage came up. He's hinted before, but this time he directly said he's been thinking about proposing to me. I was over the moon. I love this man with all my heart. But the topic of my parents came up because he asked, "If we get married, would you want to invite your family?" I got quiet and finally told him, "No, I don't want them there. And I promise I will explain everything to you soon. It's just really hard for me to talk about. Please, give me a little more time and I'll tell you the full truth." He was very sweet about it. He held me and said, "Take your time, I just want to know so I can help you if I can." I thought he understood. I trusted that he would wait for me to be ready to share that part of my past. Well, apparently, he decided to take matters into his own hands. Without telling me, he somehow got in touch with my parents. I didn't even know he was capable of that. He doesn't have their contact info, so I suspect he may have asked my brother or looked them up online. My brother is low contact with them, not fully no contact. It's possible my brother innocently gave my boyfriend their number, thinking it was a good thing. I'll have to talk to him too. 2 days ago, my boyfriend surprised me by taking me out to a nice dinner. I honestly thought he might propose to me that night from how nervous/excited he seemed. Over dessert, he said he had something to tell me. He looked so proud of himself, I'll never forget that. He basically said, "I did something I think will make you happy. I reached out to your parents." I was stunned. I think I just said, "What? Why?" I could feel my heart start pounding because this was my worst nightmare. He went on, smiling like he was doing me a huge favor. "I asked for their blessing. You know, for when I propose. I know you haven't talked in a while, but they were so happy to hear from me." I felt like I was going to be sick right there at the table. I must have gone pale because he quickly started assuring me they were actually really polite and nice. "Your dad said they'd love to meet me and that they miss you. They gave me their blessing and said they'd welcome you back with open arms." He kept talking, saying something about how this could be a new beginning for me and my family, and how he knows how important family is, etc. I honestly stopped hearing after a point. I was in shock. I quietly asked, "You told them you're going to propose?" He said, "Well, I asked for their permission. That's kind of the idea." He was still smiling, like he expected me to be grateful or excited. I lost it. I started crying and shaking, and I said, "How could you do this? I asked you to wait." My voice got louder with each sentence. He tried to calm me down, saying, "Hey, it's okay. This is a good thing. They want to talk to you. They said they love you." That just made it worse. I basically yelled, "You have no idea what you've done." It got pretty loud, and people were staring. I threw some cash down for my half of the meal, probably way more than enough, I didn't care, and just left the restaurant. He followed me outside, and I just unleashed. I don't remember everything I said, but it was something along the lines of, "You betrayed my trust. You have no idea how evil those people are, and you just opened the door for them to walk back into my life. Why couldn't you just wait until I was ready to tell you? Why did you think you had any right to contact them behind my back?" He was taken aback and got defensive. He said he did it for me, that in movies it's romantic to ask the parents. He even mentioned his own dad asked his grandfather for permission to marry his mom, so he thought he was honoring a tradition. He thought I'd be touched by him trying to reunite me with them. He actually said, "I was doing something sweet. I think you're overreacting." That sent me over the edge. I told him, "Overreacting? You have no clue. You have no idea what my childhood was like because I trusted you when you said you'd wait until I was ready to tell you. But you just couldn't do that, could you?" By this point, I was sobbing. He kept saying he was sorry, that he didn't mean to hurt me. He just thought maybe if he talked to them, maybe I'd reconcile with them and wouldn't have this burden anymore. He kept saying I was just trying to help. I told him he helped about as much as a tornado helps a town. I was pretty harsh. I was angry like I've never been before. He then got frustrated and said, "If it's so bad, why couldn't you just trust me and tell me? I was trying to do something good since you wouldn't tell me anything." I screamed, "Because it's my trauma and I share it when I choose, not when you decide you want to play hero." He looked absolutely stunned and hurt. I think at that point he finally realized how badly he messed up, because he went quiet and just said, "I'm sorry, I'm so sorry, I didn't know, please, I'll fix it." I told him, "You can't fix this, I need to go." He begged me not to leave and tried to hug me, but I pushed him away. I ended up taking an Uber home. He had driven us in his car to the restaurant, and I couldn't ride back with him after that. In the Uber, I just had a full-on breakdown. The poor driver probably thought I was crazy, crying that hard. When I got home, I realized I couldn't stay there. We don't live together, but he was obviously going to come over. I texted him saying I needed space and that I'm staying at my friend Kara's place for a few days. Kara knew something was up the second I knocked on her door. She and her husband welcomed me in, let me cry it out, and now I'm lying on their guest bed at 3 a.m. typing this because I can't sleep. My phone has been blowing up with texts and some calls. My boyfriend is apologizing, saying he fucked up, that he's an idiot, that he'll do anything to make it right. He wants to talk. He wants to explain himself more. He sent me a screenshot of a text my father sent him after their call, something like, "We are so happy to hear from you. We pray our daughter will forgive us and come back to us. You have our blessing to marry her. Take good care of her, and please help bring her back to us." Reading that made me throw up. Literally, I gagged. It's so manipulative, so them, acting all pious and innocent, and the fact my boyfriend fell for it it hurts so much. I haven't replied to my boyfriend. I can't even begin to until I sort out my own feelings. Part of me wants to call him and scream some more. Part of me wants to just crawl under the blankets and never speak to anyone again. And part of me misses him. The him I thought I knew, the one who would never do something like this. I know I have to eventually really tell him the truth about my parents. He needs to understand why what he did was so incredibly devastating. Maybe I should have told him earlier, but I was naive in thinking he'd just respect my timeline. As of right now, I'm not sure where we stand. In the heat of the moment, I yelled something about, "I can't be with you," or "We're done." I honestly don't even remember exactly. I might have effectively broken up with him in that moment. Or maybe not. Nothing is clear. This man that I loved and wanted to marry did something behind my back that feels like a huge betrayal. Yet I know he didn't do it to hurt me. He really thought he was helping. How do I reconcile that? He isn't malicious or cruel, but what he did was like handing a loaded gun to the people who pointed it at me before. My friend Kara thinks I should dump him for good. For context, Kara witnessed a lot of what my parents did to me back in high school, so she's fiercely protective of me. She says even if his intentions were good, he crossed a line that should never be crossed. If he doesn't understand, don't contact my abusive parents. How can you trust him with anything in the future, she asked. She has a point. Trust is broken. If we were married, would he make other huge decisions behind my back for my own good? On the other hand, everyone makes mistakes. He really has been a wonderful partner in so many ways up till now. He has a kind heart. I know that. He volunteers. He loves kids and animals. He treats me like a queen. Until this. I feel like this was a colossal, stupid misunderstanding on his part, fueled by romantic fantasy and probably his own upbringing. His parents are lovely people who he's very close to. I'm sure he just can't fathom that parents like mine even exist. I'm torn between anger, heartbreak, and a small voice that still loves him and maybe wants to work this out. But then I think of my parents now, knowing that I'm possibly getting engaged, having this opening to try to weasel back into my life, and I just panic. I can't go through having them around me. I went through hell to break free from them. I don't know what to do. Do I give my boyfriend a chance to fix this? Can I ever trust him again? If you had asked me yesterday, I'd say he's the love of my life. We've talked about kids, growing old together, all of it. We have so many happy memories. And now this one enormous thing might wreck it all. I'm not even sure what I'm asking for here. Advice? Perspective? I feel so lost and betrayed, and yet I still love him. And I hate that I love him right now. I haven't officially ended things yet. I told him I need time, and I've ignored his calls for now. I'm going to try to sleep. Doubt I'll manage. In the morning, I plan to call my brother and find out if he had any part in this. I also need to figure out if my parents have my contact info. They don't have my current phone number or address, as far as I know. I've moved twice since talking to them. The idea that they could just show up or keep calling is sending me into a panic spiral. Anyway, I'm rambling. I'll wrap this up. If anyone's been in a similar position, having to cut off family and getting a partner to understand it, I could really use some advice, and any words of wisdom on whether my relationship stands a chance after this. I'm all ears, because I can't think straight right now. Thanks for reading. I'll update if I figure out what the hell to do. Update. Hi everyone. I'm so grateful, and frankly stunned by the response to my original post. I've spent the last few days reading through comments and DMs. Thank you for sharing your own experiences and advice. It gave me strength and perspective when I needed it. It's been about 5 days since that night. Here's what's happened. I spoke with my brother, 27M. As expected, my boyfriend had reached out to him to get my parents' contact info. My brother did give him our parents' number, thinking my BF was planning a thoughtful surprise. My brother had no clue it would blow up like this. When I told him what happened, he felt terrible. He knows how bad our parents were. He went low contact with them himself. He apologized for accidentally setting this in motion. Importantly, he also told me our parents have already reached out to him, trying to get my new contact details. He refused and warned them to leave it alone. So at least my parents don't have my current number or address, and my brother is firmly on my side now. I met with my boyfriend, 30M. After a few days of avoiding his calls, I was ready to talk. I had him come to my friend Kara's house, where I've been staying, so I'd feel supported. He looked miserable. Honestly, almost as wrecked as I felt. He apologized the second he saw me. I told him I needed him to listen, and then I finally opened up about everything. The abuse, being kicked out, how cruel my parents have been. I laid it all out, through a lot of tears. It was incredibly hard, but I did it. My boyfriend was devastated. He was crying and kept saying, "I'm so sorry, I didn't know. I was so wrong." He said he truly didn't grasp how bad my past was. He thought the estrangement was over strict parenting or a personal falling out, not literal abuse. He explained, not to excuse himself, but so I'd understand his mindset, that he wanted to do the romantic traditional thing by asking for permission to marry me, and also had a misguided hope he might help me reconcile with them. He now understands how naive and hurtful that was. He told me he loves me and will do whatever it takes to earn my trust back, but that he knows it's entirely up to me if I even want to give him that chance. He said he has deleted and blocked my parents' number and would never speak to them again unless I explicitly wanted him to. I don't. I could see he was genuine. His face when I described my childhood. He looked heartbroken and horrified. I do believe he truly meant no harm. He just had no frame of reference for what I went through. After talking for a long time, I told him I'm not ready to forgive him yet, but I also realized I didn't want to throw away our 3 years together if he is willing to put in the work to rebuild trust. I said I'm open to trying. Very slowly, he agreed wholeheartedly. We even discussed getting couples therapy to help us heal from this. He already researched a therapist with experience in family trauma. Where we stand. I'm still at Kara's place for now. My boyfriend and I are on tentative, careful terms. I told him clearly that my parents are not to be part of our lives, ever. He understands completely now. The proposal/engagement is off the table for the foreseeable future. Way too much has happened. He said he'll wait as long as it takes, or accept it if I ultimately decide I can't be with him. As for my parents, I remain committed to no contact. They've tried to pry info through my brother, but that door is closed. If they somehow get my number, I will block it. One thing I didn't expect was feeling a sense of relief after finally telling him about my past. It's like a weight is off my shoulders. He now knows the whole ugly truth, and I don't have to keep that wall up anymore. My parents lit the fuse, but he's the one who decided to keep it from me. Those are his actions to own. I'm not sure what comes next for me. I do know I'll be staying no contact with my parents. Their letter will go in the trash where it belongs. I have zero interest in letting them back into my life. If anything, their attempt just reinforced why I cut them out.